Are you one of those that has been bombarded with phrases such as self-determination or secession, and something that seems to be catching on lately, emancipation? Are you also confused about what these actually mean to you and to the common man on the street? Well, today I will attempt to shed some light on these topics and hopefully alleviate some of that confusion. But before I get into that, I would like to thank those who took up the offer to buy a copy of Dr. Gerhard de Bruin's book, Voelvry, and using the code I gave you in the review video that I did. The contents of that book are indisputable facts, not opinions, and should be an eye-opener to anyone who reads it. To those who did not listen to the review I did on the book, I will leave a link to it in the description of this video. Voelvry is a must-read for anyone who values the truth, no matter how politically incorrect it is or who is offended by it. Facts are facts, and people need to know what they are. Okay, getting back to the topic of this recording. The reason I decided to cover these topics today is because I was recently added to a WhatsApp group where the main focus is on emancipation. Until I was added to this group, I had heard of emancipation as well as common law before, but never really knew much about what they are and what they could do for us as the minorities. You will have noted that I just used the term common law. This is because I have learned that common law and emancipation go hand in hand, or rather, the emancipation process is powered by common law. So having told you what the topic for this discussion is today, I would like to briefly discuss with you what each are, how they work, and how it could apply to us the minorities. Firstly, let us deal with the least confusing of the three, self-determination. Self-determination is a term everyone in South Africa must have heard at some point before. In South Africa, we already have a number of communities which are practicing self-determination to some degree. The most well-known would be the settlement of Orania. Orania is by no means the only such development. There are many, many more. The area that Orania occupies was privately purchased and is today privately owned land, as are all other areas striving for self-determination. The community there are striving for as much independence as they can create for themselves without breaking the laws of the country. They have done this by eliminating their need for government or municipal services as much as possible. They cater for their own needs as far as possible by supplying their own in-house labor force, providing themselves with their own water purification and reticulation systems, their own education system, their own medical systems, food production, etc. Orania even has its own currency for use between its inhabitants to promote keeping their wealth within the community. I do know that Orania does have a surplus crop that is sold to the South African markets as well. As much as they do all of this, they are still considered to be a part of South Africa and are, as such, still bound by and subject to the laws and taxation of South Africa and even the local municipal building codes. Although these are fast becoming an area of contention, I will explain this in a minute. These areas of self-determination do hold some distinct advantages for the people living in these areas. They offer increased security because they are essentially a concentration of like-minded people congregated in smaller areas or congregated close together. They are by nature more security conscious and educated on the goings-on in the country, and therefore far better equipped and much more willing to take care of their own security needs. Culturally, they live a much richer existence by reviving their culture and heritage, especially amongst their children. Although I have no first-hand knowledge, I would imagine that the education given to their children is also on average far higher than what the average is outside of their communities. Then we have secession. Secession comes in two forms, as I have been told: internal secession and external secession. Internal secession is to me much the same as self-determination, where people of a certain area govern themselves within the borders of the mother country without being recognized as a separate entity. There seems to be a fair amount of overlap between internal secession and self-determination, so for the purposes of this discussion I will not try to dig too deeply into the differences between the two. I'm certainly no expert on the subject and would rather not spread any false information. Soon I will be interviewing someone who is considered to be an authority on these subjects. I'm sure he will be able to clear up any misconceptions and confusion surrounding these topics. I'll provide you with more information as soon as I can nail him down for an interview. Next on the list is full-blown secession or external secession. External secession is what everyone thinks about when the word secession is used. It is the total breakaway of a certain section of the population from the mother country to form a totally new country. Naturally, to accomplish this, the new breakaway people also claim a certain portion of the mother country as their territory. Historically, this is normally met with opposition from the mother country in the form of military intervention and usually ends, or rather leads, to physical conflict. However, there have been many successful secessions in recent history, so anyone who says that secession is impossible needs to do a bit of research to know that it has and can be done. As you all know, South Africa has already and still is incurring massive debt by borrowing billions from other countries and entities. In the end, it is you and I that are responsible for repaying these debts. As it is at this stage, every single person in this country is already responsible for something in the order of 1 to 1.5 million rand in debt incurred by the government on your behalf. If we were to secede from South Africa as a new and independent nation or country, this debt would remain with South Africa. We will not start off our new country with a massive debt to pay. Obviously, being a totally new country, we would have to come up with our own constitution, our own governance system, our own laws, etc. In my opinion, the groups who are currently exercising any form of self-determination or internal secession have total independence as their end goal. It only makes sense. And to achieve that is a lengthy process which takes time. And in the interim, self-determination and internal secession fills that gap. Now I want to discuss what I have found to be an extremely interesting and potentially very important topic for all of us: emancipation. When I first heard the word emancipation, the first thought that came to mind was the emancipation of the slaves after the Civil War in the United States many years ago. As it turns out, emancipation in our context is not too different. What seems to be the key factor here is what is known as common law. Few people have ever heard of it, and even fewer know exactly what it is. I'm certainly no expert on the subject either, but have been in contact with someone who is. Common law, or natural law, or law of the land, as it is sometimes referred to, actually supersedes or is superior to the law system we are currently subjected to by our government, and as such, there are certain things under common law that are sacrosanct. These are things such as our name, our possessions, our property, as well as our biological offspring, or our children. From what I have learned, the country is in fact a corporation, and we the people are regarded as its assets. We are essentially employees of the corporation. The courts and the law as we know it are actually executive administrative tribunals, and the judges are merely executive administrators practicing Roman Dutch law, which in essence is admiralty law or shipping law, which has its roots in the Dutch East India Company and was brought into being to handle disputes in the shipping business. By following common law and going through the process of emancipation, we are in essence resigning from the corporation, reclaiming ownership of our names, reclaiming ownership of our property and our rights as sovereign individuals. For those of you who are religious, it can be considered a redemption process, just as humanity was redeemed when Jesus died on the cross over 2,000 years ago. There is currently a movement to educate people on this and to get them to go through the legal process of emancipating themselves from the shackles of the system we currently find ourselves in. Education on this is very important, and I am not nearly knowledgeable enough to be the one to educate people on the subject. For that we have experts on the subject, and soon I will have one on this channel to open your eyes to what we are actually a part of here and globally. The subject of emancipation is both a fascinating one and an eye-opening one. To think that we, the populace, are basically assets to the corporation, which is the Republic of South Africa, and in essence owned by the corporation together with every asset we think we own. In theory, emancipating yourself involves resigning from the corporation, removing your name from the voters' roll, reclaiming your name personally, reclaiming your assets, and therefore protecting your assets from the looming expropriation without compensation bill. Is emancipation the silver bullet to solve all our problems? I doubt it very much. For the government to acknowledge that our possessions are legally sovereign and therefore untouchable would be totally catastrophic for their future existence, and therefore we can never expect such an acknowledgement to be made ever. So what benefits does emancipation hold for us? Firstly, the emancipation process puts us in a position to govern ourselves to a certain degree and gives us the right to set up certain systems, such as, but not limited to, our own court systems, our own ID documentation, driver's license, vehicle registrations, etc. I've even heard talk of a separate firearms registry. There are already certain individuals who have their own vehicle registrations, ID documentation, driver's licenses, etc., and they have already been through the courts a number of times and come out victorious. The bottom line is, we are entitled to do this. The courts, in theory, have no legal basis to oppose or to stop it. There's a long way to go with this, and as I said, I am certainly no expert on the subject, so I have decided to get an expert to come into the channel, or onto the channel, and educate me as well as you. As I said, this is certainly no silver bullet, and will almost certainly not be recognized by the government. But it is a start, I think, and if we can use this to our advantage somehow, I say it needs further investigation. It certainly doesn't harm anything being on the right side of the law. Stay tuned for more on this fascinating subject. Remember to like and share this on as many other social media platforms as possible. It's the only way that my content gets out there. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now. If you would like to contribute to my channel, in the description field I have made provision for both local as well as international viewers to make a contribution. If you would like to make a crypto contribution, also in the description field I have supplied both a Bitcoin as well as an Ethereum wallet address. If you'd like to contribute any other cryptos, simply shoot me an email to the address also in the description and I will supply you with a relevant wallet address. To all those amazing people who do contribute to my channel, I say a huge thank you. You have no idea how much it is appreciated. Be safe out there. Until next time.